This is Jeff. This is Jeff DeRose. I'm the director at the CSI Tech Incubator, and the event hasn't started just yet. We're just going to give some time to let the crowd roll in. But in the meantime, me and our speaker Shawn are going to play catch up. So Shawn, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Like I told Ismail, I just got off a plane. I'm sitting in a hotel in Midtown. This is my background. There's some like action figures up there. So it's 200 square foot Midtown hotel, and said all the trains, the planes, and the automobiles were on time to get me from Chicago a few hours ago to sitting here with you guys. So it was fingers were crossed. I definitely haven't had any good travel juju lately, so it was nice to I think it all balanced out, Jeff. So it's good that I can make it. I'm not taking it somewhere from Penn Station. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And anything good bringing you to New York this week?
Yeah, so there's a conference called CreTech. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but CreTech's commercial real estate. And so it's been a little crazy because conference season is now back upon us. I've been on the road. I've been home 48 hours in the last sort of 2.5 weeks. So I've been doing a few conferences. So that's just been keeping me busy as people are starting to come back to in person. So I've been keeping up with the network, people I haven't seen in a long time. And so just I was in Dallas and Austin. I was here in New York, Chicago, Las Vegas. So it's been quite the whirlwind. So I am happy to get home tomorrow and sleep until Monday, and I'll be happy. So I was actually I did fit in 4 days in Costa Rica last weekend, so it was a little more
nice.
like Melissa's background. So it was black sand instead of white sand, so don't feel too bad for me. But it was literally from here, it was like trip down there, 3 days back, and back on the road. I got home last night about 11 o'clock, packed my bag, got on the road today. So I wish I was sitting on that beach, but I can at least go downstairs, get a good slice of pizza. So that's good. That's a good fit.
No, that's true. That's true. And that's good. You've always been on the road and on the move. I don't even know what you consider home until you're going to go home. And you're talking about Jersey, you're talking about Chicago, California. Like, what's home for you?
Chicago's where my clothes are. That's what I tell people. So that's Chicago's where my storage unit is. How about that one? That's about as close as I get. But like I said, I'm from Jersey, so probably sneak down and see my folks. And it's good to see everybody. Like it's good to see people in real life. It's amazing how many people you met in the last 18 months that you talk to almost every day that you've never met in person.
Yes.
And some are shorter than I thought. I'm 6'3", so I'm taller than I think a lot of them thought I was. So I think the height thing is the biggest thing in Zoom, that you can't tell how big people are. So
that's so funny.
I'm taller than they think I am. So, but it's been really nice to have some human connection.
Yes, absolutely. On a lighter note, any good books you've been reading? Anything good on Netflix?
I am watching Money Heist right now on Netflix. So I don't know if you guys know, it's the Spanish show. I'm trying to learn Spanish, and so I take a little babble during the day, and then I watch the Spanish at night. And so it's more like some context, and I really love the show. It's cool. I haven't watched Squid Game yet because I'm knee deep in Money Heist. So when that finishes, I'll get over to Squid Game. But I don't know what all those memes are, so I feel a little bit out of touch. Yeah. So it's I'm in a 5-season one, so I'm like in a little bit of a marathon. So and I'm almost halfway done. So but I do recommend, if it's good or you want to learn Spanish, it's keep it with the Spanish on and the English subtitles, and it's certainly helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that Money Heist has been getting rave reviews. I have not watched it yet, but I'll definitely check it out at some point. Another international Spanish recommendation, if you haven't seen it yet, there's a movie called The Liberator. It's about Simon Bolivar. Phenomenal movie, and it's in Spanish, and you get the subtitles. So you maybe add that to your collection.
There you go. That's what I'm doing. So me, I head down to Mexico I'll head down to Mexico again this winter, get out of the Chicago snow, and so I'm gonna be a little bit more prepared this year than just know how to order tacos and go to the bathroom. So that was my goal this year, is to, like, just get past my restaurant Spanish. Or for those of us that have lived in Miami, I call it public Spanish. So when even New York as well, some places, like, you can get through a bodega or the supermarket or the post office. So I'm trying my best. So in between all that, in between starting a company and, you said, reading, I've been reading The Lean Startup. So that's
Nice.
what I've been trying to do. So that's been fun. But yeah, it's a perfect topic today. Like we said, just trying to figure it all out, just like everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a moment for all the new people who just came in. We are just starting with some small talks. Let the crowd roll in. I'm Jeff DeRose, director at the CSI Tech Incubator, and we have Shawn Hill here with us as well, founder at August Hill and also former VC. So just give us a few more minutes, guys, before we get the conversation started. Back to you, Shawn. You were mentioning the Lean Startup. How if you've done some reading in the book, if you've gotten to a good place in the book, anything notable that you've read in it that's been helping you on your journey?
You want me to take all my thunder away from how to scale the startup here? Like,
okay, you know what? Yeah, let's save it for the
I mean, you want to give away all my good nuggets before we even start? I'll wrap them into to some of the stuff there. I think that book is pretty technically focused, like if you're building a product. And so I think, I like it. It's our business, or my business at least, is more services oriented. So, but all of the, I think just a lot of the lessons can be applied across, whether it's service or product. But for all the product folks out there, since I'm not, I mean, I think the biggest thing you could pull out of that is iterate and fail fast. I think that's really one of the things that the book concentrates on, is what sounds okay to you internally and to your team, and what the customer thinks is probably two different things. Very rarely on the first time does that line up. So fail fast, and don't be scared to fail. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that you just got to, slightly change the direction. So
yeah, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. You've met our mentor, one of our other mentors, Chris. I would say he's like a lean startup expert. I remember when he was building Chet, when me and him were on the networking scene together. This was before I was here at CSI. This guy really spent 2 years just collecting user feedback on his idea.
Yep.
And I was so impressed by that. And I feel like founders don't do that enough, just going and talking to people before building anything.
Yeah, well, that's what we tried to do, and I'll get into it in a bit. But like, I had a number. I said, I'm not going to build services for founders until I talk to 100, right? Cool. And I was like, because most of them are my friends, most of them we work together, and they're gonna say, hey, great idea, love it, and but you need a real good cross section of businesses, business types, business models, stages. And I'm still learning every day, sort of 6 months into that conversation. And I think every week my partner and I look at each other and we're like, what did we learn? And what's the core path? And and I'll just talk a little bit about that, but just like, we wrote down all the things we did yesterday, and I'm like, there's no way that we can accomplish 3 whiteboards full of stuff. So, but if we can't get it on one whiteboard, we're not doing it right now. So
yeah,
it just kept getting more, and we're flipping over and taking pictures, and I'm like, this is just too much. So like, if it can't be, I always say, if it can't get on one page or one whiteboard or something like that, like, it's just too much, because it's not about opportunities. Like, you can do anything you want to do, especially when you're an entrepreneur. People aren't telling you what to do. I sort of have a rule: if it doesn't ladder up to the core strategy, like to the core sentence, like we always said, like, what do we do? And if it doesn't make us money, because we're in a services business, and like, if it doesn't, if it doesn't create more clients, or or make us more money, or give us more exposure, then why are we doing it? So that's I think a thing that people And, people want to do the cool stuff, stuff they like to do and the stuff that they're good at.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily ladder up to revenue or customers or, whatever your sort of metric is. And so, find whatever that metric is and make sure you drive to that metric, even if it's not the cool stuff that you like doing. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's a great point. I always tell people that too. Sometimes people turn a business venture into like a personal project, just like you said. Like, it's not about your personal hobby. It's about what people want and need and serving them.
yeah. Well, I have a friend who I like to make fun of all the time, but he's like working on this business for 10 years. And I was like, well, it sounds like a hobby, like, like tell me how you make money, because I know you like doing it, but if you can't make money and scale it, and you don't necessarily have to if you don't, I think one of the questions too is like, I get this all the time for people to ask me about M&A and like, should I sell? Should I grow? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, what do you want? Like, doesn't matter what I think, right? Like, if you want a lifestyle business and you want a cash flow business or you want something else, like, that's up to you. Let's work backwards for what you want, not for like, put you in a million different directions, but you've got to, what's in your heart and what do you want to, what do you want out of this? And you don't have to, not everybody wants to be a billionaire. That's not a goal of mine. Like, I want to build something that's meaningful. I want to work with the people I want to work with, and I want to pass on the information I have to others. Like, that's my core. So that has nothing to do with a bunch of other things. Like, yeah, I need to make money doing it, but that's not the really.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right, so it's 6:15. I think we could go ahead and get started. I'm sure most of the crowd is here. So thank you again, Shawn, for joining us today. Everybody, I'm Jeffrey DeRose, director at the CSI Tech Incubator. We're here having tech talks. We're actually back from a summer hiatus. This is actually our first, I guess you could say, show of the season. I don't know if we're really like a show or whatever, but
lots of pressure.
First episode back. No pressure at all. You are as cool as a pillow. You're good. So yeah, we can maybe just kick off with an intro. Shawn, you could go ahead and just introduce yourself, and then we could just dive right into it.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Shawn Hill, as Jeff said. I'll dive into my background in a bit, but spent the better part of the last couple of decades operating companies in and around technology, real estate, fintech. Became a venture investor about 4 years ago, and officially in officially last month, sorry, launched in a startup advisory service to help. So I can talk through that, Jeff, when you're ready. But that's sort of who I am today, and I think why I'm on the phone call, because I've got a lot of battle scars underneath this button down here. So hopefully I can help companies that are trying to scale, and done it for companies that are pre-seed up to Fortune 500 companies. So we got lots of experience in doing that, which means I'm old. So.
We can tell you're young in spirit.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, and maybe just taking 5 minutes, can you just give us a little bit about your background as a VC, and also what you're doing now at August Hill?
Yeah, absolutely. So just quickly, the background is I started from 1998 to the crash in 2008. I was in the mortgage space, so I had no idea what I wanted to do. Like lots of people get a business degree, ended up in sales because I can talk, I think, or I like to talk. Maybe that's probably a better way to do it. And then had to find a new job after that. So I was in operations, sales, business development, moved all around the country, worked for banks like Washington Mutual before it was Chase, and also Bank of America. Everyone got fired in 2008. I got to figure out what I got to do next. And so, being in mortgage, I worked for a company that owned Century 21, Coldwell Banker, and ERA, which were real estate brands, right? So I got a job running sales for a software company out of Canada in Miami, which is weird. But and we basically tried to create a enterprise software platform for real estate brokerages. So think like commission, software, back office, contracts, transactions, all the things that real estate agents use to transact a deal. and was GM and ran that business for about 7 years. And then I got a phone call from a company that we all know called DocuSign, and they were sort of a West Coast unicorn darling at the time. And I'm an East Coast kid, and I was like, okay. And I went out there and said, wow, everybody gets free food. And so I was like, yeah, job, right? So it's one of those where like you walk in, you get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all the food, drinks that you can get. And I started to run their business development for their real estate vertical. So it was mortgage and title and construction and residential brokerage and multifamily and commercial. So all the stuff that I had sort of done in the past for them. And that was really interesting. And so it was a lot of enterprise, and we were growing at 100 people per month and, on our way to IPO. And so it's a really cool experience for an East Coast kid to be on like a West Coast rocket ship startup. And so stayed there for a bit. And then I met the founder of the venture fund, that she was an early investor in DocuSign and on the board. And so she said, I'm looking for people that know how to operate. And that's a little unusual, and it's sort of a newer trend 5 years ago in venture. Most of the time it was investment bankers, private equity folks, lots of spreadsheet, but not real world experience. I hope there's no investment banker, private equity folks on the phone. And I said, great. I said, I don't know anything about venture, but I know how to scale startups. So, I'll take the job, right? And I was like, if I would have said at 18 years old that I'd end up being a partner at a venture firm, first of all, I didn't even know what that was. Second of all, no one else looked like me. So I was like, sure, I'm going to take it, and I'll take this platform and see what I can do. And so my job there was to interface with our limited partners or our investors and say, hey, what do you guys need? Translate that back into our investment team and say, here's the problems that we're trying to solve. Can we go find some companies that will solve this? Then the investment team would go out and source a bunch of stuff. They bring it back to me and say, okay, you're the BS test, they used to call it me. Like, they're like, this is what the company says they can do. This is what they said they can scale. Shawn, here's the pro forma. Here's the deck. Like, is it true or not? Right. And through a bunch of pattern recognition, I would say, yes, no, maybe. I need to know more information here. We would either put them into our accelerator program, which I ran, or we would make an investment. And so then my job was, okay, now we made our investment. How do we affect our return? And we can affect our return is if I work with them and help them scale. So if I help them scale, get them customers, they can create more revenue equals higher valuations equal better exits. And there's this sort of virtuous cycle that happens. And so that's what I did. Now that leads me to, and they're like, oh, great, you got this great job. And like everybody wants it. It's cool to say at the bar that you're, in venture capital, but I'm an operator at heart. And about a year ago, I think through COVID, I told Jeff I was driving out west in Montana, just looking at mountains for a while. And I was like, what do I want to do when I grow up? Like, do I really love doing this? Right. So we were talking, and what I really loved was working with early stage startups. What I didn't love is venture and venture economics, and there isn't, and the sort of fiduciary misalignment, right? Because when you're an investor, your fiduciary responsibility is to your LP. They give you money, you take that money, you put into startups, and then hopefully that startup does well, but the expectation is not everyone does well, right? It's like if I make a bunch of bets, and if one of those does really well, it returns the fund, we all make money. And if the rest of them fail, oh well, because my responsibility is to return capital to the investor. I don't have any fiduciary responsibility to the startup. And so I never really understood, like, so I'm like, wait, we're supposed to help these people, but that's not really, like, we make money through them, but that's not really our responsibility. So I need to figure that out. So I said, can I create a platform that changes that paradigm a bit? And I want to work directly with the startup founders because that's what I like doing. And so we created August Hill. And basically we said in private equity, there's what's called an operating partner. So when private equity funds come in, they make an acquisition, they drop in an industry expert and say, here's the expert, you go help them, create revenue, decrease expenses, scale their company. And that's what that expert does for a few years. And then they go away and they do it on the next one. And like, okay, we got the next one. And so no one's really done that in venture. And I think it's really interesting that the promise that venture funds typically make is we're smart money. And everyone on the phone says like, I'm strategic money, or I'm a strategic investor, I'm a smart money. And like, basically what that means is I'm not just going to write you a check and show up at your board meeting. It means I'm going to help you. And I think for a long time, especially through like 2015 to 2020, that was the promise of many venture funds, especially domain specific venture funds. But what happens is, because the fiduciary responsibility is not aligned, it's like, I got to put this money to work because the IRR clock is ticking. And I got to go chase more deals, and I got to get these deals done because I have to raise another fund. And then, you have these funds that have raised 100 million, 200 million, all this money that has to be deployed, and they sort of forget about the people they already deployed it because they're chasing after the new deal. And this is not just me talking, this would be any of my counterparts, as we've gone through. And so what's happened is founders have been left with a little bit of this, like, hey, can I call you? And I was like, well, I have 90 portfolio companies. Who am I going to pick up the phone for? It's like, if you're not my biggest check, right? If you're not in my top 5, right? Like back in my MySpace days, like I don't have time. Like, I can't do that because I got to go chase after a new deal because I have this money and I have this responsibility to get this money to work. So I'm not telling anyone on the phone anything they don't know or haven't experienced. But it really hasn't been anyone that has said, how do I go solve that problem? And so we've gone out and said, hey, founders, when you get to these inflection points and you're stuck, or you need help, or you need things to move along faster, we're here to help you. And we've said the same thing to venture capital firms is, you're not able to operationalize your promise anymore. And they say, you're right. Can we hire you to go do that? Right. And so that's the thesis. And that's what August still is at those inflection points of fundraising or scale or, or operating or, these type of things or products things or, can we come in for a short period of time and help you manage through those? Because that's what we've done for a long time. And that's what our team is really good at. So that's, I think, how I got here. And now all of a sudden I'm an entrepreneur and I don't get a paycheck every 2 weeks like I used to. But as I told Jeff, we talked to 100 founders. The response has been overwhelming. We have more demand that we could take, which means there's a real need in the market for people just like, can I just pick up the phone and call somebody? Because I just need help. And so that's what we're here. But today I'm think of me just as you sitting in your seat, figuring out, how do I scale this thing? I just hired my first 3 employees who started today. And I'm like, oh no, what did I do? Oh, now it's not just me and my partner anymore, right? So now I got to figure out how to when do we go to 4 employees? When do we go to 10 employees? When do we, do we go raise money? Do we do this? Do we raise debt? All these things. So I say all that to say, I've had a lot of experience talking to people. I'm in your shoes today, so it's pretty close to my heart.
Yeah, no, that's what an amazing journey, and I'm sure there's been plenty of ups and downs. I'm curious to know, because you're talking about you have a lot of demand. What is the demand for specifically that entrepreneurs feel like they can't find services for?
Yeah, so the first, number one, when we went out and did all these interviews, companies said, I know I need to go raise money. I know I need to get venture capital money. I've never done it before. Maybe I raised from some angel groups or some friends and family, but I need to go to an institution. And I have this list of 250 people that somebody gave me, or I downloaded, or I, did it. Now what? And I've already got 50 no's, and I'm feeling bad. And what am I doing wrong? Can you please help me? And that was, I think, the thing that we heard. And that wasn't a thing that we set out to do. We were like, hey, do you need to go to market, or do you need some other things? But everyone kept coming back and saying, this is hard and I'm frustrated. And so can you help me think about my story? And can you help me put a story aligned? And again, this is one of the things that if you've never sat in an investment committee for a venture capital firm, you may not even know the questions that they're asking, right? And so you're just guessing in the dark, right?
Yeah.
So what is, part of it was can we just educate people on the metrics that people are looking for, the questions that they're asking? What are they looking for, in these particular areas or business models or all these things? And we said, look, we're not going to go raise money for you. You're the one's got to be on the phone, and you're the one's got to get rejected face to face. But we will give you the answers to the test. And, for a few different domain areas where we have connectivity, like, prop tech or fintech or insurtech or other places, like we can narrow the universe for you. And we can get you probably a better curated list than you. We can get a story that resonates. We know how big of checks they write, who they write them to, what they like. And then we can put you in the best position. So maybe you can take 50 meetings instead of 250. Because every no hurts the same. It's like, what did I do wrong? What happened? Why didn't they like me? All of that stuff. And like the less we can get rejected, the better it is. Right. I know it's really like it's pretty obvious to say, but it's why are they saying no? Like, no, they're like, oh, thanks very much. It's just not for us. Or, we've heard every excuse in the book. So that was the first one. The second one was some go-to-market stuff. So help me, like a lot of early stage founders don't have enterprise sales experience. Right. They're either technical, they just don't have that on their bench, right? They just like, I've never been enterprise sales, so wait, I need a big logo to go raise around, right? Or I need a big pilot. And I've never like sold a multi-million-dollar, multi-year deal into a Fortune 100 company, right? So like, I have no idea what to expect. And I'm a startup, I can't go hire someone to do that because I don't even have the money. So that was another place that we saw where like, okay, let's walk through what that looks like. Are you ready? Is the product ready? Are you even going, do you even need enterprise to get to the next level? Or can you go mid-market or long tail or one of those? So there's been some go-to-market help. We've looked at, some people have said, I've got version 1.0 of my product. I need version 2.0. Like, what's that look like? Can you help me think about like what my product or what my revenue stream or what my business model needs to look like when I grow a little bit more? And then the last one was, it's sort of that post fundraise, like the $2 million just hit my bank account. I have no idea where to start now, and I'm scared to death. And that is like, oh, that's like, oh no, the wire just hit. Now what, right? So the clock is ticking. My investors are ready for me to do. I showed this nice graph, this nice pie of like use of funds. And now I got to go actually do that thing, right? And I have this like really pretty pro forma with this nice hockey stick, and like, oh no. And so that's an area where we said, okay, slow down. Let's figure out how to get this. Like, what do you need to do internally? What do you outsource? Do you go recruiting? Do you need benefits now? What do you need? Like, do you need, what's your board look like? Like all these things that again, it's hard for founders to call their board because they don't want to seem like they don't know what they're doing when we don't know what we're doing. Like I've been doing this for 25 years. I don't know what I'm doing. I say it every single day. I was like, I've already done this and I don't know what I'm doing. So I can't imagine someone that's 26 and like hasn't done this before and like $3 million hits their bank account and they're like, oh my God, like, oh my God. So it's a little bit of just sort of mentorship and strategy and those type of things.
Okay, no, that's cool. And been very interesting, and it sounds like you're really filling a need. Because even working at the incubator, these are some of the same issues that all founders are calling and talking about. So that's great. It's not like you have product market fit.
Well, it wasn't because it wasn't needed. I heard it every single day, Jeff, and I like you and I talk about it. It's everyone has a need. It's just when the need hits and how fearful and how deep the fear is. Like it's not. And then who do you turn to, right? It's like sometimes I call my mom and I'm like, hey mom, what do you think? Right. So
I hear you.
So anyway, that's
okay, no, once again, very interesting background, and congrats on August Hill. And it seems like you guys are well on your way, and just diving into the focus of the topic tonight, just straight away, what makes we're going to be talking about scaling operations. I think a good first question is, what makes a business idea scalable, and what should founders be thinking about when they're starting a new venture or business idea?
I mean, I would say a few different things, and I'm going to start. I wrote this down, and I think when I go through and we look at pitch decks, and whether it's pre-seed, seed, Series A, all the way through growth, like I ask a few questions, and so I'm like, tell me what your company does, and it's amazing how many people give me this long answer and it's a paragraph long and I see it and I'm like, no, like, what do you do? And then, again, the long answer comes and I'm like, no, what do you do? And so, I think when you're looking at a new idea, you need to have if you can't say it in 12 words or less or something like that, and I'm not like tell me what you do. Tell me, who do you do it for? Tell me how big the problem is. Like, and I need to know like how big the problem is. How do you do it? Like what is the actual thing that you do to to solve whatever problem that you've done? Tell me who else is doing it. I need to know who else in the market. And I was like, oh, I don't have any competition. You're lying to yourself. So like anytime you say no one else is doing it, you're wrong. I'm the first one to do it. I'm like, well, then nobody likes to, especially from an investor perspective, nobody likes to be the first, right? That's why hundreds of VCs said no to Uber, right? They're like, what? Get in a stranger's car, stranger danger. No, we don't do that, right? Like, like that's why, you can blaze the path, but it's cost a lot of money to blaze the path. Things that are very new or regulatory or those type of things, like the first thing that happens in a venture capitalist mind is that it's expensive, right? So why is it? So who has done it, and like why has it been or not been successful in the past? I think when you think about your idea, right? And I think why it hasn't been successful is a really good exercise. It's a little harder when it's already been successful and you're trying to build a better mousetrap on something that's already been successful. And so do I change business model, or like, what do I do, or go to market, or those type of things? So I'd ask that question to yourself. Why are you and your team better than the people that are doing it now to do that? And like, I think people forget, and they're like, oh, well, it's my idea. And I was like, well, that doesn't make you great at doing it. So if if you guys ever read about second-time founders that raise $20 million seed rounds, you're like, how did that work? And they're like, well, they've done it before, and they're the right, and they've been the chief of insurance, and they did an insurance, at Allstate, and now they have an insurance tech company, right? Like, that's why they're the person to do it. And so you don't have to do something that you have 20 years of experience doing, but you do have to communicate why you or your team or the team that you've assembled is the right team to do it. Because that's a question, especially early on, that people are going to ask. So why are you different or better than everyone else that's tried it in the past? Really important question is why now? Like, I think people skip that. Like, if there's no sense of urgency, I'll just wait until you're bigger. And that's another question. I think when you think about your idea, or like what's a scalable idea, it's like, why is now the time? I asked myself this question. I was like, why is now the time for us to do what we did? And the example was, everyone in our space on the venture side has just raised 100 million. So there's 5 billion fresh new dollars that has to be deployed in the next 5 years. Just happened. That is a moment in time. So like, there's a 5-year window to go after. And so who knows what happens in a year from now? Who knows what happened, last year? We can look back, but because there's this moment in time, the time is now, and you need to be able to communicate that in your business. Like, why is today, or why is the problem going to get worse or get bigger? Those type of things, I'd say. And then how much is it going to take to accomplish this? Like, and not just for like your MVP or your version 1, but like, you need to think through how much this thing potentially takes from a capital perspective. Does it take a million? Does it take 100 million? And it's okay if it takes 100 million. It just better be a big problem, and you better have and you better be able to justify that. And especially if you have a business that's regional and needs to scale national, like the first question anyone ever asks is like, great, I have a furniture rental business in Chicago. Amazing. Economics work. Everything's great. How much does it scale to go to LA? Is it $1 million to go to each city? Because then I can start to do the math and say, okay, this is only interesting at 15 cities. So that's $15 million. And so that's an example of one, if you have a business that has to, that is service oriented, that has to scale, is just how much money do you think it's going to get to that's interesting. And so I know I sort of said a lot, but I think you need to answer those questions when you say, like, your questions about what should we think about when developing a new venture or business idea. You have to answer those questions at a minimum to get to the point that I would say that you have a business that's ready for scale.
Yeah, no, those are some great points. And even myself, I'm a bit of an experienced entrepreneur myself, and you gave me some good gems to think about. And maybe on the flip side of that, what would you say are maybe some of the common mistakes founders mistake when it comes to scaling? Let's assume they answered all those questions and the idea makes sense and it's a scalable idea. What would you say, like, just in terms of like, there's always ideas of what you need to do, but then there's the actual execution of it. What would you say are maybe some of the common mistakes that entrepreneurs make when it comes to actually scaling?
Yeah, well, I'm going to give you there's two, I think, major ones they fit in as asking a question. One is going too fast and one is going too slow. So I think it really goes down, you have to sort of thread the needle, and it depends on sort of what you want out of this thing and where you're taking money from, right? So there's been a really interesting shift recently, and just in sort of how capital is coming into the private markets, right? And so it used to be you got some friends and family money, maybe you bootstrapped it a bit, and you just like kept going, and you like try to get to profitability, and you keep going, and you grow as fast as you can reinvest back into business. That was like the old school way to do it, right? Now there's billions and billions and billions of dollars, and basically rich people saying, I have no idea where to put my money, but I'm now taking it out of the public markets and putting it into privates, right? And so that is high net worth individuals. Everybody wants to be an angel. Reg A changes have said, like, you can crowdsource up to $5 million without being a fund, and you can do rolling funds, and you have family offices that are getting, and you have alt stuff that's like, you have private debt and private credit and all these other things that you didn't have before, right? So, I think, right now, sometimes it's you've got to figure out who your capital sources are, because they each will dictate how fast or slow that you need to go.
Mm.
You take venture money, you better go fast. and when
Yeah.
I say go fast, because the IRR clock's ticking, so everyone wants these things to go, right? You want to get to the next
Quick
round. You
question.
want to go, yeah.
Can we just clarify what's IRR?
Sorry.
Yes.
Investment rate of return. So it's really when, as soon as you collect $1 from an investor, that clock starts ticking over time, and as you return capital, that percentage goes down as time goes in the future. So, well, sorry, it should be this way. I have to go so as you start to collect that. So investors want the highest investment rate of return. So that's the most amount of capital back at the shortest, could be at the shortest amount of time, right? Because the time value of money is the way that goes. So when, that's why when you hear investors want, I want a 10x on this deal, right? Everyone wants a 10x, right? And so what does that mean? And so, I think you're looking at, when you start taking cap. Now, other people are more patient. Uncle Joe, if Uncle Joe gave you some money, they may be a little bit more patient and not be pushing you so fast to get the money back. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. If anyone's taking family office money, they don't have to go raise another fund typically. And so, they may be a little bit more patient. So when I say fast and slow, I think a lot of that's, again, just dictated by where you take money from. And then a little bit of fast and slow is sort of reach versus revenue. And I think that's an interesting topic to talk about, because sometimes people will say, oh, well, we're profitable. And I was like, nobody cares, right? like this isn't a 10-year-old private equity deal where, where people are worrying about how much profit you have. This is an early stage venture deal where what the venture investors are looking for is growth and top line revenue. And that's how they underwrite a deal. So if you know how they underwrite a deal, and they say, if you hit 100% growth year over year, and you have, and you're growing your revenue $2 or $3 or $4 million a year, that's how they're going to value you. The valuation is going to determine how much dilution you get as a founder when you go raise money. And so, sometimes I see early stage founders hold on to that money that's in the bank, because they're so worried about runway, and they're so worried about burn, and they're so worried about other things. And like that gets a little bit counterproductive. Now, I'm not saying go out and, go fly the jet to Paris and, go burn all the money, because, that's what you want to do. But again, this is this going too fast versus too slow. And some people say like, I need to get to profitability. And some people say, I need users. And that's the thing. So I don't have the perfect answer for you guys, but there is the common mistake is like hoarding the money and not growing fast enough. And the common mistake is spending it on stuff that's not core to your business, like the G6 to the Tour de France. Like that's not core to your business, although it's it's cool and you can sponsor stuff. But like that's where I think the fine line is. There's no definitive answer to what is too fast, what is too slow. There are a ton of variables that come into that. Your investors will tell you what's too fast and too slow most of the time. You just have to dictate when to open the faucet, when not to open the faucet, and like what dictates growth. And I would say if you just default to make sure that you are, looking at proper growth numbers and proper revenue growth, and if you have to spend money to get there, great, but don't turn on the faucet to turn on the faucet. So that would be my best. So I think there's a lot of just there, and then I think the other part, this is not a shameless plug, but like outsourcing the things that you're not good at or take a lot of time, right? I see plenty of people that say like, oh, I can't afford an attorney, so I'm gonna look at it, and they make a mistake, right? And so like,
disaster.
Yeah, you can do that, right? And then your contracts, just aren't airtight or whatever it is, or like, I'll learn it myself, or I'll fumble my way through it. And I think most people are smart and can figure stuff out on their own, but there are experts out there that can shortcut that, and you don't have to learn everything on your own. You don't have to be a jack of all trades in everything. You never will be. And so again, that goes for time, like fast or slow, right? So I'll learn this over the next 6 months, and next thing you know, you're like, man, someone would have done that for me in a week. And like, it probably wasn't worth the time or effort because I took time away from my core business because I was up late night reading contracts for dummies, right? Like that's just not, that may not be the best use of time. So I see founders do that a lot. You'll see a lot of most of my clients are second time founders. And you're like, well, they've already done it before. And they're like, yeah, but they know the stuff that they're not going to do this time. It's a little bit of like, I did that before. I remember how painful it is. I'm just going to pay somebody to do that. So
yeah,
a lot of times that's the case.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm definitely an advocate for that. Just if you can't do something well, just pay somebody to do it. Done is better than perfect also. Just getting it done and moving forward is just so key. And those were also some good gems. So just diving deeper into this scaling topic, can we talk a bit about like establishing like, your business infrastructure? I think sometimes, people are thinking a lot about product and sales and getting a VC, right? And they're not really thinking about, how do I create a scalable infrastructure for my operation to actually scale it?
Yeah. Well, that's close to my heart, Jeff. I'm a lifelong operator, and like, even in our business today, I was like, no more new business for the next 3 months. And my partner was like, what? I was like, nothing. Like, no new clients. And he's like, wait, what? I was like, because this isn't about 10 clients, it's about 50 clients, right? And so if we go out and sell another 10 clients, we can't handle it, but the whole ship is going to come down, right? And so I said, we're going to the holidays. It's a great time. Like we have product market fit, we've got customers, like everyone, like now let's lock it down and let's get all the systems in place, right? So what's our billing look like, and what's our contracts look like, and what's our operating procedures, and what's our hiring stuff, and all of this stuff. And like, I know it sounds counterintuitive to not get business, and I just told you to go fast sometimes, but like, think about whether it's customer, if you get 50 customers, always think how you're going to service 5,000, right? If that's your metric. And if you have one client, how are you going to do it at 100 clients? And if you try to fly the ship, if you try to build the ship as you're flying it, as people say, you're going to be in trouble. Plane's going to start falling apart, right? You're going to get off the ground, you're going to get midair, and the thing's going to start tearing up. You can't build fast enough when it starts to take off. So take some time in the beginning. The pressure may or may not be less, but it's easier to build systems around 5 people than it is around 5,000. I would say don't don't skimp out and take a free system just because it's free. If the paid one's $10 a month, that's going to let you scale. Because the worst thing is you get through and you're like, okay, well, this is great, and now I got to go to something else, and I got to switch my CRM, or I got to switch my accounting, or I got to switch whatever, like my contract management or my deliverables, or my product, or all those things that couldn't handle it. That goes for product as well as sort of internal. Is if you don't build for scale, you're going to be ripping it down at some later point, and it's going to cost you more time, more money, more effort to go back and sort of rebuild this thing that you built. So I always recommend, money or resource dependent. If you can build product for scale, if you can build internal systems for scale, spend a little extra time and effort and money to do that up front. There's a term, it's called tech debt. A lot of us, whether you acquire a company that has stuff, or that you're like, I'll fix it later, or I know it's not ready to scale, but I'm just going to build it anyway. A lot of times you got to go back and fix that stuff, and it's more painful, not only for you, but for your customers or your clients or whoever it is. Painful. So
yeah,
I would say it is just, whether it's CRMs or whether it's your contract system or whether it's your development system, or make sure that those, I'd also make sure to like write stuff down, write down processes and procedures. I know you think that like everyone's happy and everyone's going to stay forever. People do leave, and they take that knowledge with them, and no matter what you do, you can't get it all out of their head before they go. So when you're scaling up, you got to figure out, is this person the only person that can do this? If they are, you're in trouble. I can't tell you how many co-founders have left, how many heads of developments have left early stage companies, and they've had to start from zero because nobody wrote anything down, nothing's documented, and I got to go build this thing over again. And did they put some exploding thing in a product that I don't know about? and just it happens. I can't tell you, once a month I get a call from a founder who is going through some co-founder issues, and nothing's documented, written down, and it turns into a little bit of a mess.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and that's something I'm even because the incubator, we're actually kind of scaling up in our own way. We're making some hires, and actually something that I think about, and the team talks about a lot too, is just the different processes for different things, and just making sure that other people know how to do it. Like, for example, we're using HubSpot to do like CRM outreach stuff, etc. And it's primarily Ishmael doing it, and I had to get on there and make sure I learn it too, because if Ishmael goes, it's over with. No more outbound emails. Right. So that's a very real thing.
Especially what's core to the product. For us non-technical folks, it scares us to death when we have a technical co-founder, or we have, or we outsource development, or we do whatever, and like, what happens if they go away, or like, what happens if something's there? Like it scares me to death, at least. Like to make sure all that stuff's done. It's easier the earlier you do it. When I told you, when I was at DocuSign, I was employee 800, and in 10 months we were going to have another 1,000 people. We're going to double in size. Christ. And you can't the systems can't go fast enough, right? Like, so everything had to, and so it doesn't matter the size of the company, right? So figure out when you're trying to get there, it's like, oh, we can't do this, and we got to go here, and like, you start doing that. It's at the same scale, but like, that's where the pain comes in, is that you're building the plane while you're flying it, and it's better to land somewhere, build it for a little bit, take a little time, even if it's 2 weeks, take 2 weeks like off, and just say, look, what do we need to get to? What's the structure that we need to get in place, at least get us to the sort of next major inflection milestone? People forget about that because they're like, if I don't, it's all about sales, marketing, especially early on. So I can't impress that upon everyone enough.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And from what I'm hearing, though, it's also just really about thinking through your business processes, right? I mean, every business is different. So I guess like in this call, there is no one size fits all, right? But you got to really look at what the functions are of the operation. Maybe there's some tech functions, maybe there's some outreach functions, maybe there's some functions around sales, and you guys or I should also say around service. And how do we put processes and procedures in place to make that flow more efficiently?
Yeah, I've been a sort of career sales and BD and all this, and like I always used to joke that I just create a lot of work downstream for other people by the words coming out of my mouth, right? Like it just like that's what you do. Like salespeople don't realize that. You're like, oh yeah, sure. And you want it in green? No problem. And I'm like, it's just green. And they're like, well, that's like, a lot of work to do, right? Or just put a button over here and it'll be fine and everyone will love it, right? So um, I do think what a lot of businesses forget about is implementation, right?
Mm,
Staffing implementation, because it's not about the slick salesperson that's over promising all the time. Like somebody, typically internally has to deliver that. And a lot of times early stage companies, those sales are founders, and so they want the deals. I'd say a lot of people understaff for the implementation of for your clients. And whether that's B2B or B2B2C or B2B or B2C, sorry. I think that's a scaling problem that many people have of what's the delivery mechanism. And that is a little bit of, do you have the systems to do it? Do you have the people to do it? And you can sell everything you want. If it doesn't stick around, then you've got a churn problem and, depending upon your business model. And that's a question that a lot of investors are going to ask is like, who are you? How long do your customers stay with? How long are those contracts? Are the people happy? And venture investors will call your big clients. They'll get a sales pipeline and they'll call them and see if they're happy, right? So
yeah.
So if you don't, I would say there's a people tend to forget about implementing versus sales and resourcing that requirement.
Yeah, no, that's actually some great feedback. And you mentioned in there people. Maybe quickly we could just talk through scaling a team, since you're going through that right now. Like, what should founders be thinking about as they're scaling their teams?
Yeah, I'm thinking about how do I find really smart people? Like I just like, well, and I think for early stage founders, how do I find people that have different skill sets than I do? My co-founder and I were very deliberate when I was like, if I want to go be an entrepreneur, but kind of too scared to do it myself, to be honest. Like, who would be the right persona person that I know that complements my skills? Like, I'm the worst organized, internal, write stuff down, like fly by the seat of my pants guy. If I had one of those, we'd be in trouble, right? We would sell a lot of stuff and it would all fall apart. So I had to go find someone that, and then we start building a team around, okay, here's my skill set, here's your skill set. Where do we have gaps? And then as we started to hire people, where are those people that fill in those gaps for us? And so I call it like the Trivial Pursuit, like pie piece, right? There's like 6 little things that you got to get in there, right? Like I fit one and he fits one, and like who are the other 4, right? So we have this thing that we go win the game, right? And so who are the people that we know to fill those in? And so that's, I think, being deliberate in one that just helps you, because if you're not good at it, there are other people that like love being organized and doing all that stuff. I don't understand it, but there are, right? But they don't understand how what it is to get on stage or have a talk in front of people, and like so everyone has this, everyone fits there. But I think you need to be really deliberate as like, what are their skill sets? Do you have an opportunity for them? Are they filling a role now? Are they filling a role that they can move up in the future? Like I'm a big proponent of like, it's not about this job, it's about the next 2 jobs, right? If you don't see the opportunity for the next 2 jobs at this firm, then you're probably going to go when that opportunity comes up. And you don't have to have that all defined as a startup, but like it takes a special type of person to join an early stage startup.
Mm-hmm.
Either crazy or desperate or or exciting or all those other things, right? So
I've been both.
yeah, you're gonna come on board, it's gonna be fun. Guess what? You're gonna learn a whole bunch of, like, you can go to Wells Fargo or JP Morgan and sit in that chair and get on the escalator every 2 years and go where you want to go, right? Or you're gonna get on this chaotic plane that's falling apart as we're flying it, and like it's gonna be really fun, but like it may crash, right? Like that's the thing. So but at least if we can, most people want to know that there's opportunity for them and do all that stuff. So I would say, find people that have the personality to persevere through a little bit of struggle. I mean, that's my questions around the people are like, tell me times that you've struggled and you persevere, because this isn't going to be easy. And like, I don't have all the answers, and it's going to change on a weekly basis. Like the North Star may not change, but like the boat's going to shift 17 times before we get there. And
Yeah.
so if you're not ready for that and you want steady Eddie, like there's a bank in a suit across the street, like get on the escalator, right? I mean, that's fine, but you have to be honest with people that come on when you're scaling, because you're going to give them opportunities they probably wouldn't have at some other place, because it's all hands on deck, right? When the fire happens, like we're all firemen, right? It's like, well, that's not really my job. It's everyone's job, right? Especially when you're small, right? So, sometimes I'm the social media person for the day, like
Really?
that's what I got to do, right? And I'm just like, oh, well, I'll figure it out. And like, if someone's not going to do it, then, and I don't have someone yet and I can't pay someone to do it, then, I got to make my own LinkedIn post and figure out what all those buttons mean. So like, that's it. But I would say in scaling people, I would say find personalities that are ready to be in a startup. And find areas of business, and that comes back to why is this the team? If you can start to sort of build that team out that completes that Trivial Pursuit puzzle, that like, this is why this team is here, and I've hired people as a founder that have skill sets that I don't, that are creative to the business, and that that have done this other places, then you can get around like, this is why I built the team that I built.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. And I have just two last questions. Maybe we could just get quick responses so we could just hop into Q&A.
Yep.
But I'm just curious to know, the first question is, any technology tools or automation tools that you guys are using or familiar with that could help with scaling?
We are using some things that are sort of very specific to consulting. So like, it's some time management things that may not be relevant to everybody, but like tools like Toggle, and we have another sort of CRM called Capsule that's very, very services based. So I'm happy to chat through. Before we even started, again, we like pretty deliberate and say like, what are the systems across all these things that we need? And like, let's go do a little bit of digging into each of those. So, I would say, just say, what are the areas that you need? And then what are particular systems? And then just go through and take a look at it and call people. We called other consulting firms and we said, what are you using? Because like, I don't need to make the mistakes all the time. So like, I'm a big fan of picking, I've done a lot of favors for people over the years. I'm sure everyone else has. Like, call them in when you're a founder, like, hey, help me out here. Like, so I don't have the best answer for that, Jeff, like of systems, but I would say like, nail your accounting and your invoicing and all that. Like, make sure you can get paid. I would say,
Yes.
like, if you can't collect money, you might as well shut the doors in the front. So make sure that is taken care of.
So there's QuickBooks for that, or PayPal.
Yeah, and make sure that that your contracts, and I would say spend some time on those, that you're well aware of all of those up front. What are the ins and outs? What do you like? Spend the time on that, because that's where I think you're gonna run into some issues. I think those are just two areas that like you need to be really, really tight with and professional with. And if you do it yourself, or I've seen contracts that I think are done in crayon or something, like it just doesn't look very professional. People aren't going to take you seriously. So
yeah. Okay, those are some good points. And the last question is, can you maybe just give an example of maybe of a founder you've worked with or that you've seen that scaled an operation really well? And what were the things the founder did right?
Yeah, so I mean, luckily I've worked with a lot of great founders. If I had to pull a common thread out from those founders, is that they were deliberate, and they got prepared for the scaling moment before the scaling moment happened. So they knew that they were going to get either a large injection of capital. They knew that they were going to have to scale for the next round, and they took the time previous to that to get a lot of things in place. And whether that was hiring plans, whether that was their financials, whether they were job descriptions because they knew they had to hire 10 people, whether that was like succession plans or promotion plans. They were just very deliberate in the planning process. It's the measure twice, cut once. Like, that is the best thing I can tell founders to do, is like, if this all goes to plan and what's in your head, you're going to have to prepare for it, right? And so take the time, slow down, and prepare for that point. Because if you miss that point of that big, that big fundraise, after that money, like, it really, like, Jeff, I can't tell you, they call me and they just say, help. And I was like, help what? They're like, I have this cash now, and this is all I wanted. And now I'm like, I don't know what to do with it because I didn't plan for it. Right.
Yeah.
And so I would say just take the time to plan. And whether that's people or processes, it just takes longer. And I'd say, like, my other thing is, like, everything takes twice as long, no matter if you think you have the best laid plan. So give yourself the time to do that. But the ones that have been successful, and they just sort of will themselves. And I know that's like a hard thing to teach to people, but like, no matter what comes in their way, they'll work their way through it. Nothing is a straight line in this entrepreneur game. And, I can pick out 4 or 5 that I'm just like, I know that regardless of what comes up, they're going to get through it. Right. And
yeah,
they're going to say if they need help. They're not scared to raise their hand, to call on mentors, to do all that stuff. And they were all highly prepared for at least a few different scenarios of what was going to happen.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense, and that's definitely some good advice. I just want to say, thank you for taking some time and giving us your knowledge today. I think this was very insightful for me personally, and I'm sure the people at home. And I would like to open it up to questions. So you guys could write your questions in the chat. We do have a first question so far. Janelle, I'm going to go and unmute you, and you can ask your question out loud. Janelle is actually one of the founders in our community, so I think she has a good question.
I think she's still on mute.
Sorry about that. So hi, thank you so much for so much really good information. My question is really going back to the beginning, where we're looking for VCs. And a lot of times us as founders, we give away our power in those meetings. So I was wondering if you can give us maybe some inside intel on what we should be asking to make sure that the VC is a right fit for us.
Yeah. So it's a good question. So how do you not give away the power, right? That's what you asked for. I mean,
yeah,
power can come in a few different forms, right? So especially early on, there's power of equity, right? So how much of my company do I give up for how much money, right? And so I think there's a balance there. There is sort of board membership, or sort of, there's that type of power, right? So do I give up that? Do I have voting rights? Do I have some other technical things that, in my company? I think most of it comes around to how much dilution am I willing to take at each particular round. And a lot of early stage founders get taken advantage of because they haven't done it before, right? So I've never done this before. This is why I always thought it was really weird. It's like you have these professional negotiators that do this all day long versus these startups that do it once or twice or 3 times in their lifetime. And it's the first time they're going through it, right? And that's not an equal power or equal leverage, right? This is, as an investor, this is all I did all day. And you're trying to do a million different things. So I would say there's probably some general guidelines to go after. I mean, I would say if you're diluting yourself more than 20% in a round, probably not great for you. I've seen a lot of times early stage founders, dilute, and they get to their Series A or Series B, and they own 3 or 4% of the company, and there's no incentive for them to stay around long term, right? They've lost the power, they've lost the dilution. So your levers are certainly valuations, and so you want to be able to make sure that you have a valuation that doesn't, that you can support one, but it's high enough that you don't lose, sort of more than 20 to, max 25% of your company in that round or your shares in that round. So John will tell you, like, be very conscious of the terms of your deal and, who you allow to sit on your board and what valuations you're comfortable with as a team, so you don't lose that power in later rounds, because it just disincentivizes you later on when you've given up so much of your company.
You're still there, Janelle? Maybe I gotta unmute her again.
No, I definitely am. Also, within the VC, how do we vet which is the right VC for us? Because, we are vetting our list of 200 each year.
Yeah. So I would say you want to see how long they've been doing it, what other deals they've done, how successful those portfolio companies have been. And I would call the other portfolio CEOs. I would get in touch with them and say, did they add the value that they wanted to? Like, one, just their track record should speak for themselves, right? Who are the other investors they invest with? Who are the companies, at what stages did they do that? And, founders talk all the time in portfolios. So I would say reach out to those that have done well, reach out to those that haven't, and sort of you're allowed to vet them like they vet you. They're making calls on you, you should make calls on them as well. And a lot of founders are willing to take that call and talk to you about their boards or their investors.
Yeah, great question and great answer. We have another question from Melissa Powell. Melissa, I'm going to unmute you and let you ask your question.
Hi, thank you, as Janelle said, for all the great information. My question is, what advice do you have for founders who are working on things that are not appealing to the VCs, like, as you mentioned, the regulatory environments or firsts, when they're preparing to raise?
Yeah, there's always alternative forms of capital. So, like I said, there is angel groups, there's high net worth individuals, there are family offices, and I'm not going to say there are VCs that specialize in regulatory or high regulatory markets, whether that's healthcare or government tech, or other things that are highly regulated, it's just about risk for them and their risk tolerance. And if you can find some VCs that are domain specific, I mean, there's so many VCs now, like it's insane. Like, you can find somebody in every single domain, or you can also find a lot of corporate venture arms that are potential customers of yours that have investment arms, right? So, if you are looking in a specific, area, and there's big corporate customers, a lot of times they can do direct investments. They may not go super early, or they may not lead, but they understand the risk, and so their appetite may be greater than if you go to a generalist VC, that just doesn't have. I mean, they're looking for reasons to say no. Some are looking for, a lot of the domain specific ones understand that risk and are okay. Like, if it comes to real estate regulatory stuff, I'm much more comfortable with it, right? Because I just know it, right? And I would look at it differently. But some of the other sort of, I don't want to, non-institutional investors may be a little bit more open to those type of things as well.
Awesome, thanks.
Yes, great question as well, Melissa. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? While we have Shawn Hill here, brilliant guy.
I think someone asked for my email, Jeff, so happy to share that in the chat if you want.
Oh, okay. Yeah, please do. I mean, we will also send a follow-up email with a recording of the video and Shawn's contact information and all that good stuff. So, I mean, you can feel free to share your email, but everyone will get a follow-up email with your contact info and things.
Great. Well, I'm happy to be a resource. I've been working with Jeff and the team for a while now. And I've met some really great founders. We've done some work with some of them. and it's been really fun. So as Jeff would say, I don't say no. I try to give back as much as possible. I'm very fortunate to be in the position I am and understand even more now in the last 6 months, since we've known each other, how hard this thing is to do. And so even if you want to call and commiserate, I'm here for you.
Yes, thank you, Shawn. Okay, so it doesn't seem that people have any more questions. So I guess we could wrap up here. Thank you again, Shawn, for making some time for us. I know you're doing so much traveling and back and forth, and you still made time for us. So that's, we really appreciate that. And best of luck on the new venture. I hope August Hill becomes, top 10, top 5 consultants in the US, and, good luck with everything.
We'll see. Watch out, Ernst & Young. We're coming for you.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
All right, thank you, everybody, for coming.
Yeah. Bye.
Good night.